Best of the Game is brought to you by Old Dominion Freight Line, official freight carrier of USC Athletics, helping the world keep promises. We've got Julia Karten from USC Women's Rowing, Jordan Moore, Keely, you're Max Brown. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you as well.
Well, welcome to Trojans Live. You're a sophomore. You're from Philly.
Yes.
Is that a big rowing town? How'd you get into rowing?
It is a big rowing town. There's a lot of history in the city. When I was growing up, we would always drive by on the highway. We would drive past Boathouse Row, where there's about 15 boathouses all lined up. If the Eagles are playing, it's lit up in green lights. If it's Christmas time, it's lit up in red lights. And there's a lot of history in the city, and I wanted to jump in. You
know, back east, we call them highways.
Oh.
Not freeways.
It's freeways.
Just so you know, what she was referring to is
Yes.
we would call it freeway. It took me a long time to make that switch, but
the translation.
Julia's just a couple years out here. So.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yes.
In that sense, how does someone from Philly get to USC for rowing?
Honestly, USC was the only school on the West Coast I was talking to, but I love the coaches. I'd always wanted to come to a school with a ton of school spirit, and I definitely found that in USC. There's great academics and a great mix of athletics, and throughout the recruiting process, I loved the coaches and I loved everything about it, and I came on my official and decided I wanted to be here.
Awesome. So the Boathouse, 15 in a row, like where does that come from? Is it just like a body of water that makes a bunch of sense and people invest in there? Or like what's the backstory with that?
Yeah, rowing's a really old sport, and it's on the Schuylkill River in Philly, which is perfect place for rowing. So I think, I don't know a ton of the history, but I think they just built them all up there, and it's, everyone just wanted their own space, so now there's a ton of them all in a row.
And I've heard your family has gotten really into it now. You're officially a rowing family. How is that playing out?
Yes. My dad rowed for a year in college, but didn't continue it a ton. And then when I got back into it, my mom really wanted to pick it up, and she brought my dad with her to take a few lessons. And then my brother, who's a junior in high school, decided he wanted it in as well. So this is his second year rowing now. This summer, we actually rowed a family quad together. So that's definitely making it on the Christmas card this year.
So what does that actually mean, a family quad?
So it's a boat with 4 people.
Sure.
So all 4 of us together.
But where'd you row? Like, is there a family race or something?
No, we just rowed for fun. But we went back to the boathouse. They now all row for the same club that I rowed for in high school. So we got a coach, we took out a boat, and we didn't make it too far, but it was fun.
I just feel like rowing's all about communication. So you get to work on family communication.
Oh, yes, very much.
Who's the leader and who's the weak link?
Sorry, Dad. I think my dad was the weak link.
Oh,
sorry, Dad. I called you out.
Yeah, they are watching. My brother was the bow seat, so he was the one directing and steering. So, he was doing a good job being in charge. Well, my mom and I were just there.
Well, you just mentioned that the bow seat. So when it comes to USC rowing, you row in an 8-person boat, correct?
Yes, most of the time.
Yeah. Where do you sit, and how does that sort of determine your role in the boat?
Honestly, I usually sit in a different seat every day, especially in the fall and early in the spring. We're constantly in different lineups, which is, good. You have to learn to adapt, but it's definitely hard because of that. The stroke seat is the person who's setting the rhythm, and then if you're back towards bow, you're usually setting up the boat with the technique, and in the middle 4 is usually the powerhouse. So we switch all around, and it's fun to learn.
You're
to
a powerhouse.
Sides. Oh, yeah, of course.
There we go. Love that.
Now, I heard that there's a lot of criteria to make it to the top boat, and that criteria changes every week, or you fight for that top spot. What goes into, getting into the top boat?
A lot of it is mostly strength. We spend a lot of time on the rowing machine too, which is a very direct number of how fit you are. There's technique that goes into it, but that's a lot of it. And then also just moving boats on the water. We'll do seat races. So you take 2 boats, you race them down, and then you switch 2 people and you see how they switch differently, like which boat was moving faster. But there's a lot of factors that can go into play with that, like the water and currents and everything. Wow. So a lot of it is our coaches watching, switching people sometimes just to see how things are moving. And we spent all year, and lineups changed right up until the last race.
Oh. I remember when I was here, a good amount of the women rowers that we had were elite at other sports and then recruited over to become rowers.
Yes.
Is that frequent, and what kind of advantage do you have by being someone who started younger in this sport?
I think, sports like lacrosse. So when I played a lot of sports growing up, and I think sometimes I enjoyed those sports, but I didn't start when I was 3 years old. So I felt a little bit behind, but rowing is, I think, pretty typical to pick it up in high school. So I like that the playing field was more even, but rowing, it's all about fitness. There's a ton of technique that goes into it, but if you are a big athlete in a different sport, you come in and you're fit, they'll teach you how to row.
Yep.
How is this team looking? You had a couple fall events, and now you head into the spring. How's the group look?
I think we look good. We spent all fall training just to race a few times in the spring, and we have raced a few times in the fall. Just they're a little bit more like relaxed races, but we're doing well. There's always things to improve on, and I think we put a lot of fitness in the fall, so I'm excited to see how it plays out in the spring.
One of the races you guys had was against Stanford, who won the national championship last season. Do you directly compare how you guys want to go up against a national champ? Like, what are the takeaways from a race like that?
Overall, our coach thought it was very positive. They are the reigning national championship, so they're definitely fast. But I think we were happy with our margins on them, and it was really good for us to just, throw down and test our speed because we knew they were going to be fast. So we're just doing everything we can. But it was really fun. It was fun to see them and good to test our speed.
As a football player, when you go on into road stadiums, like for me, playing at Arizona State and Georgia Tech, you knew that was going to be like a fast track. And playing at Notre Dame before they went turf, it was like going to be really slow. They had long grass. For rowing, when there are certain waters that are going to be like choppy and hard to manage, and then others that are smooth and easy, where you're like, oh, sweet, we get to play in this event or row in this event where we know it's going to be smooth versus, we're going to the East Coast, just for an example, where like it's choppier. Is that a thing, or how does that play out in your sport?
It is a thing, but I think it's so dependent on weather in the area you're racing. There are some courses. We went to Princeton last year to race, and that was pretty very smooth course. But then we raced at head of the Charles in Boston this year, and that's usually pretty windy and like ton of choppy water. So there are some courses that are going to be harder to race on, but for the most part, I think if it's windy that day, the course is going to be windy.
You ready for rowing to go mainstream this holiday season? George Clooney's got a big rowing movie coming out.
I know. I'm very excited.
Adapted
The Huskies.
Boys in the Boat. Yeah.
Yes.
Pac-12 rowing. It's on the guys' side, but just saying, it could be the most popular sport this time next year if the movie hits. That's the way these things go. Formula One was the last thing to hit. Could be rowing next. You're a step ahead though. You already got your spot.
I know.
So you're good to go. Good luck on a great season. USC women's rowing. Check out all the information to follow them on USCTrojans.com. Monster Energy, the official energy drink of USC. Unleash the beast and fight on Trojans and fly on with ONT. Ontario International Airport is a proud sponsor of our USC Trojans. Visit SoCalSoEasy.com to book your journey through ONT today. Allie Jones, USC heptathlete for track and field, is next on Trojans Live.